Right. Hey everyone, I'm Klloo, and welcome to Runechant, the data pack that I've been working on for quite a while now. Now, this video itself is kind of long overdue, but hopefully shall serve as a nice jumping off point. No, I don't actually want to go down there. An introduction to the data pack, Runechant. So we're basically just going to go over some of the main mechanics and main changes of the data pack for anyone interested in giving it a go or playing it. Now, one thing that I do want to really sincerely say is a big thank you to anyone who does download and play it, because one of the biggest aspects of the data pack that's difficult for me is to playtest and balance and tweak and make sure there are no big bugs, right? I do my best to test things as I develop them, but this has grown into quite the large pack. So anyone who does download and play and give me feedback one way or another, YouTube, or you can join my Discord, link in the description, is doing me a big solid, so sincerely, thank you. Right? But for any of you who have not tried it and want a reason why, well, how about 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a lot. There's a lot of content in this data pack. Now, what is Runechant? That's probably another good starting point. It is a advancement-driven survival plus experience for Minecraft, right? It does a lot to add a bunch of RPG elements to survival Minecraft, to also expand the different systems that you can play with, as well as the content and reasons to do X, right? We all got, a killer iron farm and something like that, leads to creative choices or building this majestic structure. But sometimes those goals, might not be enough. So how about some extra content, some fun things to play around with and explore? If that sounds good to you, well, you'll probably like this pack a little bit. Another big thing for anyone who might be opposed to X feature in the data pack, everything is tweakable, right? Using either the manual config file in the data pack or functions in themselves, right? If you do function glossary, you have the ability to pick and choose parts of the pack to utilize. For instance, the seasonal system that's going on behind me. Don't like it? All you have to do is disable it, right? So you can run this function, or you can go to the config file and change the value of it. But if we do that, the season will disappear, right? All the particles disappearing, the icon goes away, and the seasonal system is no longer in effect. And again, we can enable it nice and easy, but you can cherry pick the parts of the pack that you enjoy most, right? You can use none of it, you can use just the trim stuff if that's really all you want, right? So it's entirely up to you whether or not you want a full Runechant experience or a partial Runechant experience. Now, I do want the full Runechant experience, so we'll do just that. Okay, now, what about some of the biggest tweaks? Well, there's probably two that are the most impactful. And again, you can choose whether or not you want to utilize them. But for anyone who's just downloading and playing, there's two big features of the pack. We have a player stat and rebalancing. And then we also have the world seasonal cycle, which you can see adds particle effects and this fancy icon above the hotbar, which also may conflict with something. And you can disable just the icons, right? If you do have a resource pack, confliction, right? But what exactly is it? Well, in every single biome, there is going to be a seasonal effect. Well, possibly a seasonal effect, right? Depending on a few different factors. Time, position, whether you're above or below ground, right? Whether or not you can see the sky, and what time it is. Now, the time is a hidden factor. You won't really know. You'll be told when seasons change. In fact, again, I can use functions to speed it up just to show it off. So again, if we do function glossary, you have access to a bunch of different developer functions, we'll call it, right? Just useful tools if you want to do X or try X. So for instance, we can set the season to a different season. So instead of it being life, which it is now with the little green border, we can set it to scorch. There we go. The seasonal period has shifted, is currently the season of scorch. Now there is no specific scorch effect where we are currently, because if we look through the advancements, and again, this is where the advancement driven part comes into it, what we can see is we have the season of scorch, right? Harsh heat and danger. And then we have the different season effects: scorching heat, frigid blaze, burning cavern, and lushly flourish. Now, if we look at any of them, it says this season effect causes X, but also down the bottom affects cavernous and harsh nether biomes. So if, for instance, we come over here, we have different biome classifications, right? And we're told what biomes are what. So for instance, under special, we can see that cavernous biomes include just the dripstone caves. And then of course, nether biomes would be harsh. So basalt deltas, crimson forests, and nether wastes. So depending again, where you are and what season it is, will depend whether or not that biome is affected by a seasonal effect. And the reason for this is to make exploring a bit more rewarding / dangerous, as well as re-exploring a bit more interesting as well. You might set up in one biome, get X season, not like it, and move. Or you might find that certain seasons are beneficial to you because there are good and bad effects. So you might want to go scouting for X place. And that type of mechanic is what I'm striving for, right? To give the player a bunch more choice in their progression when it comes to Minecraft, right? Rather than being cut and dry, bum rush to the nether, get your netherite, get your equipment, do all that, go slay the ender dragon nice and easy. I want challenge and variability. And that to me is what the seasonal system does, let alone the player stats and rebalancing. Now, the rebalancing is a big one. So we have equipment changes, and rather than reading through this, which you can if you want a more detailed experience, what I've done is rebalanced all equipment and tools in the game to make them a bit more comparable. For instance, if we were to take a leather tunic and a netherite chestplate, right? We put the leather tunic on, and a FOV increases slightly. In fact, we'll do it this way, right? So see if you can notice the slight difference. Now, works significantly better if I equip a full set, but basically, depending on the type of armor, you will get benefits and negative effects. So there is a purpose to wearing leather, right? If you want to be fast and nimble, well, leather's the go-to. Now, if we were to equip the netherite instead, we would get a negative speed bonus because it is heavy armor, right? So while it is more defensive, the penalty is now speed. And this is all orchestrated through the player stat system. So there are 7 different stats for the player, and they affect all different things. We have conceal, resolve, intellect, strength, skill, vigor, and agility, all of which, again, encompass various different attributes, right? There are a ton of attributes now in the game that Mojang has given us access to, and all these different stats either end up awarding you positive or negative attribute changes. So again, what equipment you use does matter. And more so than rather just this is better than that, right? You actually have to weigh up certain aspects. Now, while you can't see it, you can notice changes. In fact, if I were to go into survival, not spectator, it would be vastly easier, right? So we have leather, but if we were to put the netherite chestplate on, while we do become slower, eventually, depending on how many, we get an extra half a heart. And all of this then scales with the actual attribute systems within the pack, which there are various ways to increase your innate attributes so that these modifiers on equipment become even more impactful. The general idea behind rebalancing the equipment is in the early game, there is not much difference, right? There is still benefit to using lighter armor or different armor, but as you progress, you will notice that leather becomes even more impactful, right? If you want to be super fast, you'll want more leather. If you want to be super tanky, you'll still want netherite, right? And that way, hopefully, depending on how you want to specialize your character in a more of an RPG flair, you have reason and rationale to mix and match, to use this over that, and again, go after all sets of armor. Rather than just beelining for netherite, you might want to go make a bunch of gold armor, right? Because it is the worst in durability, right? But it offers its own benefits, especially if you dive into magic, because it will end up helping you, right? Now, that is a brief summary, I would put it, as one of the major features of the pack, right? So again, 7 player stats, all affecting a multitude of attributes, and you can train these skills, and there are various ways to train the skills, right? But the underlying change in terms of survival Minecraft is that all equipment now has its own internal values and its own rationale for use over X other piece. Same goes for tools and equipment, right? Having a wooden sword, while it might be less damage, is going to be lighter, right? So again, less of a burden on you and quicker than having a iron sword or a diamond sword or a netherite sword, whereas they might do more damage, but they're going to be slower in comparison. So again, I wanted to give the player the choice, right, of actually utilizing everything. And one of the biggest things that, or in terms of a data pack that I've done, which was pulled from this and is a part of this, was a major change to trims and materials, where every trim and every material now gives the player different benefits. So that is, again, a system that pairs well with equipment changes. If you take leather equipment and you augment its speed further through, say, lapis, right? If we go to the physical arts and we actually look at the different materials, where lapis gives movement speed by 9%, that percentage is going to work with leather armor to end up being a much higher percentage change than if you were to, say, put the lapis material trim on netherite. Hopefully that makes somewhat sense, right? It is a very, very RPG element. But again, just think of it as more freedom of choice, more flexibility in what you want to use, and again, it's not just about beelining to netherite because it's the highest tier, right? That's the fundamental change that I want to make. Again, if you don't want it, you can disable it. Easy peasy. Then we already went over the seasonal system, but there are ways to ward against the season. Again, follow the advancements and they will explain as much as possible. And if there is stuff that isn't well explained, do let me know so that I can fix and tweak the advancements, because I want the advancements to wholeheartedly serve as the explanation for the pack, right? So aside from those two, another big feature that you'll find throughout the entirety of the pack is the crafting. The crafting utilizes drop crafting, where we are to drop X items onto X structure or block. So for instance, with this fletching table, we take out a stone and a stick, we go ahead and we drop them onto the fletching table, right? They get locked into a certain position for a little bit. You can still pick it up, but it'll stop it basically going straight back to your inventory and give you time to craft and drop different things. But if we drop the stone and the stick, they will craft together into a stone, saw, and hammer, right? So that is the essence of drop crafting. Taking all the materials and rather than going to a GUI or input, just dropping them onto, again, a multi-block structure or a table. Now, there are a few flavorful reasons why I prefer this over just, again, making GUIs or anything like that, but it's also a nice environmental change, right? Actually seeing your work craft. And again, it allows me to utilize blocks that don't have use rather than creating my own. I would rather repurpose a bunch of the stuff in Minecraft that has very limited use or has singular use, which is the same thing. I just said that twice, right? And give the player, again, more variability, more reasons to do this, right? Making a beeline to a village for all the different construction blocks now has its own benefit and reward. And as you can see, I'm also training my stats just by sneaking around, right? All the player stats can be trained through general activities, right? Go mine, go chop trees, go harvest blocks, go do this, fight mobs, take damage. All that will train your stats and you'll be able to again, reap the rewards and power yourself up, right? There is a higher end game than normal Minecraft, right? There are so many attributes in the game and Mojang keeps adding to them, but we barely get any interactions with them. The closest we came was the crab claw, right? Which they end up still adding the attributes, but never, gave us the crab claw. Anyway, I digress. I'm getting off topic, right? So we have big changes to armor and equipment. We have a seasonal cycle, right? A world influence. Then we also have there are unique mobs that will spawn. There is boss systems. There is still, again, some content that I'm working on, but overall, you want to enjoy the pack. You want to get the most out of it. The easiest thing to do, and again, I think at the very least, it's slightly above average in terms of helping guide the player. And you might have questions, right? That's okay. It's a bit hard because, again, from my rationale, I know exactly what to do versus, again, looking at the advancements, reading this, and hopefully understanding it. But all you have to do is play Minecraft and enjoy the different survival experience. Now, we'll briefly go through the advancement tabs, and I will run off some of the big features, right? So again, we have the basics tab, which gets you access to a new way to process ore, right, through rock crushing, and a new deep slate furnace, both multi-block structures, both throw stuff into, and they will craft. Again, the usual dynamic that you find in any sort of mod, right, where you've got your ways to double or triple your ore gain, right, and process it a little bit quicker. You can do whole stacks of blocks instantly through the deep slate furnace, and then you also have all the different ways to unlock the other tabs located in this starting tab, right? So for instance, down here, we have Understanding Flora, throw several exotic flowers into a water-filled cauldron, or acquire the corresponding scroll of knowledge to unlock a new advancement tab, right? It tells you what's required and tells you where to drop craft it. So drop craft with a water-filled cauldron. And then that would go ahead and unlock this tab, Botany and Brewing, of which there is now new ways to craft potions or amplify potions / use potions. So we have Cauldron Brewing, which is basically a starter beacon, right? You can take potions that you make and you can drop them into a boiling cauldron, which is a new multi-block structure, and then it will disperse said effect into the environment, right? You've got lesser versions where you're just dropping flowers, so another reason to explore and collect, and then you have the actual dispersal of potion effects. For any potion you have made, that effect will be distributed, right? Then you also have ways to enhance potions through new sniffer drops. You have, and then a poison system, right? Where you have these weapon coatings, which is to do with the new inventory slots, which is also something I should probably explain. So if we go back to survival, right, up here we have a few inventory slots. Now they function as normal inventory slots, but if you put the specific item into it, right, that is outlined, you will gain certain effects. So for instance, the poisons would go into this first slot, and depending on which poison you craft, you would get a chance effect on hit. So for instance, Scorched causes the afflicted to suffer heat exhaustion, reapplication increases effects. So every time you hit something, there's a chance to apply Scorched, and every time Scorched ticks, it will do X, right? And again, these are all nicely indicated here in a glossary. So if you want to understand features of the pack, and maybe if you get having stuck, right, it is still in beta, still in work in progress, so I don't fault you. Give yourself all the advancements. If you just want to play around and test everything that you possibly can in the pack, go nuts, right? There is also a glossary of items similar to the glossary for functions. If you do loot, give yourself, or any sort of variant of loot, you can then type in glossary and you will find all the custom items of the pack for your access, right? So there is a ton. There's a ton of items, there's a ton of new assets, there's a ton of features. Again, I cannot stress how big this pack has gone away from me, right? Started off very, very tiny, but here we are. All right, on to the next tab, Worldly Knowledge. Okay, Worldly Knowledge is random stuff that spawns, but there are a few interesting things. This will be where all the bosses are, right? So we have different boss items. Now, these are the only functional bosses so far, but I am slowly working on them all, right? So basically take an old book and Rainbow Feather to the Enchanter's Nexus, and then this item will allow you to then summon a specific boss by doing this. When an interesting book, it seems to have woken due to the magic of the Nexus. Maybe you should drop it off to a librarian to see if they can figure it out. You go, you drop it in front of a librarian in a village, and it will spawn a boss for you to fight. We also have a player-built mob spawner, right? So you can create this, what's it called? An end spawner is what we're dubbing it, and a way to make different mob eggs so that you can actually utilize the spawner, right? Or I suppose you can go find a normal generate spawner, and I don't know, is it only a creative thing, right? If you have a mob egg and you right-click with a spawner, can you do that in survival? Let me know, right? And then we have a few different craftings. There are a few unique trims that are accessible through unique crafting rather than just the smithing table. Physical arts, right? We have equipment tinkering, which allows you to further enhance the stats of different equipment. And I will do spotlight videos on different features. But again, I just want to do a nice summary / introduction to the pack because there is a lot to go over, right? So we have Tinker's templates. And then, of course, we have the trim and material overhaul, right? So depending, again, you can trim weapons, a whole bunch of different stuff now, shields, fishing rods. So, for instance, if you stick a pattern on a weapon or tool, Vex plating. Having a weapon or tool trimmed with this pattern in your main hand or offhand grants a chance to regenerate when taking damage, right? Similarly, on armor, if we come down here, we have Vex plating for armor. When wearing a full set of armor trimmed with this pattern, gain the ability to enhance the effects of totems or steal totems from nearby players. Sounds interesting, right? And of course, all the materials now offer different stats. They're indicated here by percentages. So for instance, having a enchanted golden apple will give you 5% in a bunch of things, but also a -3% in a bunch of things. Wearing a full set of any specific material, right? So complete in all 4 slots, you'll then be given a specific set effect. So there's lots of ways, again, to customize armor. And again, you can weigh up the benefit of having a set effect or having different stat bonuses, right? Same with the patterns, or you might find, again, some other unique ways to trim, like leather trimming, right? Then there are a few unique things to craft, advancements of the archaeology system, right? Different brushes to get extra rewards. It's still awful. There's no better way to, in my eyes, to speed up digging through suspicious sand. So deal with that what you will, right? Some shields, right? A bunch of different craftable stuffs. Then we have rare oddities, which is basically a unique drop for every single mob in the game. Every single mob in the game, similar to a wither skeleton, now has a unique drop. Right, some of these unique drops are used to craft boss spawning items. Some of them are just consumables that you can use, but generally they all have a relevant use, right? A reason to farm different mobs in the game, rather than just the stock standard that you normally would. Then we have magical spells and runes, which is a magical system, right? Where you can craft special spell books and you can tweak them in various different ways. You craft various different spells and, of course, shoot them at your enemies or your friends. Up to you, right? Along with a rune crafting system where you can place runes on the ground in an item frame to basically construct special traps. Again, all listed. Then we have Shulk. Shulk is another way to enhance weapons through giving them specific unique abilities depending on enchantment and a special heart, which you can also find in the Worldly Knowledge section, right? All the different hearts you can collect. So again, lots of ways to customize tools, equipment, and attributes, right? Then we also have the custom enchants of the pack. Again, another way to to enhance things. Labyrinth of the First, still a work in progress. You can get there, you can utilize it. There's besides from fighting things, there's not any rewards or anything like that in the Labyrinth yet. It's still a work in progress. One of the major features that, again, for the end game, I want to finish. So there's that. There is the rest of the bosses. Again, there's only about 6, was it, that are fully functional? Yeah, 6, perfect. And then a final dungeon with a final boss. That is the end goal for me. Then we have the Enchanter's Nexus, which is a hub dimension. Get to play through a little short story of cleaning it up and defending it. And then you have access to a bunch of different minigames and some unique resources for some unique rewards, right? I basically wanted it as a fun place to hang, maybe do this or that, but not to have a direct impact on the rest of the pack. So you can go to the Enchanter's Nexus, you can get rewards, you can do the minigames, you can do all that, and you will get benefits from it, but the rest of the pack is not required of it, right? There is nothing from the Nexus that you desperately need for the rest of the pack, right? So it's just a fun little relaxing place to do a lot of different things. Also, there's a few tweaks and updates to that I would like to make. Then we have Research and Relics, which is a bunch of suggested content, right? So very, very happy to have suggestions and then implement them. So a big thanks to Elfin for their idea with what was the word? Not their idea wasn't XP infusion, but it was a way to utilize XP in a different way, right? So from there, we also have another special item for the survival inventory slot, right? Which gives a unique bonus. You can craft them, can't utilize them just yet. You can put them in the slot, they just don't do anything just yet. And then we have Jeju's research down here, which is a way to combine runes and spells in a unique system. Again, still being worked on by moi, so bear in mind. And there's also a cooking system that I do really want to add by, or suggested by Fire Luna Craft. So bear in mind that will come, and that will directly tie to play stats and the rebalancing. In the play stats, we have various different mini games to train your stats. In fact, we'll play one to end things out. And then of course we have the seasonal system. Again, all of these can their major features can be broken down. Anything that is player driven, right? So for instance, in the Bonnie Brewing, Cauldron Brewing, right? You have to go out of your way to do that. So it's not a big impactful thing. But for instance, the poison system, because it can drastically affect PvP, sorry, right? That is disableable, right? So you can disable all the big interactions of the pack. Again, look through the function glossary, and you'll find them all, and you can pick and choose which aspects of the pack you yourself want to utilize. Now, to end off, we'll go over the multi-block structures, because they work in a very similar way. You end up with these structure kits, and for these are training different stats. So for instance, we have agility, conceal, we have intelligence, but I want to play my favorite one, which is the strength minigame. Perfect. So strength minigame, we'll take a copy of that. I am in survival, so that's no good. We'll take a copy of that. And then again, the advancements will explain how to craft it. But for all the multi-block structures, you get this type of kit. And all you have to do is drop it on the ground, and it will place the structure where you drop it, right? In the case of this one, is a nice lodestone board, and you have this pushable block and this goal. So nice and simple. You need to left or right click. If you left click, it goes all the way to the end. If you right click, it goes one block. And as soon as it touches the goal, you get a point. So for instance, if we can do this enough times fast, what we end up getting, in fact, I'm going to set it up to make it nice and easy, we will end up training our strength, right? There we go. No, that was sneaking, never mind, right? If we move this up to and then push it, there's our goal. We can do that, and then that, and we should hopefully get a level soon enough. There we go. So training has increased your strength slightly, right? So again, you can play all these different mini games to train your stats. You can just play Minecraft normally and you will passively train your stats, but be warned, as you train your stats, as you level up, you will attain a power score. And as that power score goes up, well, the world will be made slightly more difficult by way of spawning, right? So there is a chance that X mob will spawn at X hostile mob. So you don't have to worry about farms or anything like that. I also broke a block because I'm creative. It should, actually no, it won't let me move past it, right? So if it touches an empty space, if you try and push them off the board, they will just get destroyed, right? As you can see, we're gaining a ton of blocks. Every time we clear it to spawn, every time, or every X amount of time interval, some spawn, so you will get cluttered. So every now and then again, you'll have to try and clear the board. Anyway, the minigames have their own caveats. I've been talking for way too long. It's a very, very rough introduction because I really don't know how to do it, other than playing through the pack myself, which I really want to do. But time constraints, I really don't have the time to play through it properly and enjoy it, as well as continue working on it in a timely manner. So hopefully once all the major content is finished and it's just add small thing here, tweak that, then we can start a proper playthrough. But nonetheless, hope you enjoyed this chaotic nonsense. And yeah, if you're interested, the data pack is in the description, along with the Discord if you want to pop on by. Again, any queries, any points you're stuck with the data pack, more than happy to help and explain stuff, because then it also tells me that this area needs to be tweaked or fixed or changed so that it is more understandable. And again, hopefully we can get to a point where all the advancements explain exactly what you need to do. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.